And we are live for the final post-match live stream of the season. How you doing, mate?
Doing well, Chris. Doing well. Yeah, we got the season finished. So
Right.
all those financial woes are behind us now. So everyone's going to get paid. So that was obviously the main thing for all the clubs, for that stability. Because obviously, if we for whatever reason, if the season couldn't have been finished, things were going to be really really up in the air and potentially very difficult for clubs. So we got it done. It's finished. All the games are played, and most importantly, we're still a Premier League team.
That is the absolute most important thing. I believe after the second match of the restart, I believe I said I was very worried and thought we would be going down. Very thankful I didn't have that prediction did not come to fruition, and that we remain for at least another season. I'm hoping, though, we don't have to experience anything like this again, but we say that every year.
Yeah, 4 seasons out of 4, we've had some concerns. Three of the seasons since the move, I mean, we've had real concerns, including this season. So it's not been going well, this move.
No.
And obviously, I think it's almost nailed on now that David Moyes will be the manager at the beginning of next season. Yeah. So, we still don't really know how he's going to do for us over the course of a full season. So we'll see. We'll give it 10 games, and we'll probably know a lot more after 10 games about kind of where we're at. But we could really do without another season like this one.
Yeah, I agree. I think we'll know a little bit more too about the kind of the way this season's going to go, just based on the transfer policy. Are we going to bring in younger players? Are we going to bring in anybody at all? Are we going to keep the dead wood, or are we going to clear it out? Hey Tim, how's the drive, bud? If for those who don't know, Tim actually graced us with his presence today in Columbus, good old Columbus, Ohio, with the E13. Got to meet Tim for the first time. Had a very fun time. Hope the drive is safe back to your home. But it's just going to be a matter of if we end up clearing out the dead wood like we need to. But for me, I was actually talking with Tim about this. People made the note that Moyes' contract actually only goes through Christmas, like through the Christmas break, which means he's got a few months. At this point, his contract is now a prove your worth, prove that you're worthy of getting an extension for a full season. So I think at least in the first half of the season, I think we're going to go basically balls to the wall, trying to make sure that we're in a good position to give Moyes a new contract.
Yeah, Moyes is definitely in a delicate situation. We have to do well in the first half of the season because unlike Pellegrini, who was on a long-term contract and was on a lot of money, Moyes has neither. So the club can sack him on a whim.
Yeah.
And it costs almost nothing to get rid of him. So he is on tenterhooks a bit, Moyes. He's done just about well enough so far to maintain the reins going into the new season. But as you said in the previous show, he probably will be on a short leash. And the first 10 games, I think, will be absolutely vital for him next season. Yep. He has to get off to a reasonable start. We can't be in or around the relegation zone heading towards Christmas, because I think Sullivan would pull the trigger at that point and say, I'm not doing this again. Not having us going into the final 6 games with our Premier League status on the line. So, Moyes has a tough task ahead of him. He has to do well in the early part of the season. And look, I hope he does. I wish him well. I like him as a person, as a man. I actually like David Moyes. And I think it's clear that the players actually like him. I think the players are behind him. So hopefully he'll go on and be successful for us, because that's what we all want. Now, I have major doubts, but I hope to be proven wrong.
Yeah, it's with regards to Moyes, it's kind of a similar situation to a lot of our players who should be better than they are, in the sense of regardless how well they're like, regardless of what we think of them, we're always going to root for them as long as they give everything. I want every single manager to succeed at West Ham. I wanted Pellegrini. I wanted Bilic to succeed. I wanted Moyes to succeed the first time around. I'll never not root for whoever is manager of the club or whoever is playing. But there does get to be points where it's just like, okay, we need to move on. And I'm hoping that it isn't necessarily like that with Moyes this upcoming season.
Yeah, fingers crossed. I agree completely. I think you kind of summed it up as so well as to leave me nothing really more to say on that. But yeah, fingers crossed. Let's hope it goes well. And it'll be interesting to see, actually, you're talking about Deadwood. It'll be interesting to see which players David Moyes fancies and which he doesn't. So I'll be interested to see which players he thinks are surplus to requirements and wants to move on.
I believe that there was already some sort of short list put out or mentioned that includes the likes of Anderson, Wilshere, Masuaku, Balbuena, and Yarmolenko, and Ayeti. So, I mean, he's already identified, but it's and Lanzini, I should put that in there too. But it's a matter also of how much we get for those players, because we're not just going to try and sell them for pennies. We're going to try and get what their value is. So it'll be interesting to see what kind of offers come in, if any do.
Yeah, I mean, all of those players you mentioned, absolutely none of us will be surprised with any of those players being moved on. No. They're kind of players we could list off in our own heads without any insider information. Those are the kind of players that we'd expect he would be looking to perhaps move on. I suppose the two major ones that remain to be seen, the elephant in the room obviously is Declan Rice. No, of course Moyes does not want to move him on, but will he be a West Ham player at the beginning of next season? That is the big transfer talking point for our fans over the next few weeks.
I end up being one of the biggest talking points of all pundits in the next few weeks. Like, will he move? Will he stay? If he does move, is it Chelsea or is it somewhere else?
Yeah, that'll be the major talking point for us. Another big one for me will be, what is the status of Sebastian Haller?
Yes.
As regards to David Moyes. I mean, look, he's our record signing, £45 million. And he can't get in the team right now. I mean, Antonio was, because of the formation we play with one striker up top, and since Premier League resumed, that has been Antonio.
Yes.
Now, granted, Haller was picked up a knock and was injured for a portion of that, but the fact that he has been fit and available for the last 3 or 4 games and still could not get back in the team has to be a worry. So, look, we can't have a £45 million striker on his wages sitting on the bench, making the odd substitute appearance. So something's got to give. Moyes either has to find a way to incorporate him in the team, which means either dropping Antonio completely or removing him from the number 9 position, or changing up the formation and finding a way to play them both up front, which I don't think Moyes will do. I think Moyes really likes this formation, this 4-2-3-1, and I do as well, frankly. So I doubt that we'll see a formation change. So it's a question of, can he get Haller in the team? If he can he get Haller playing to a high enough level where he's worth his place in the team and worth keeping here? Or does Moyes simply already think, I just don't fancy Haller, I'm going to keep playing with one up top, and it's going to be Antonio because he's much more effective? And then that means, does that mean we have to take a huge loss on Haller? I mean, how much is someone realistically going to pay for him? So that's going to be a huge one that I'll be keeping a really close eye on over the next few weeks.
And that's the question for me. from me as well. I don't think with the likes of Felipe Anderson we'll be able to get anywhere near what we brought him in for. Allaire, he's still not at that point where it's like all hope is lost in terms of recouping our investment. We'll probably still won't get the exact amount, but if we get anywhere in north of 30, 35 million, I'd take it in a heartbeat, because you don't know if he's going to pull himself out of this next season, if he's going to get into the team, and if he doesn't, his value is just going to continue to drop. So eventually we're going to run into the same predicament anyway.
Yeah, I mean, as regards Anderson, he cost us around 35 million. So we are going to take a loss on him. We would do very well to get 30 million of it back. I suspect we'll get probably around 25 million of it back. But that wouldn't be too bad. You know, he's been there 2 seasons. If we take a 10 million pound hit on him over the 2 seasons, it's not terrible. You know, we can live with that. It's still 25 million in the kitty. Haller is the one that we could really take the hit on. You know, if he's only with us for 1 season and we have to take a 15 or 20 million pound hit on him, I mean, that would just be an absolute disaster. So we'll wait and see what happens there, but that would not be good.
No. Well, let's kind of turn our attention then to this match. Obviously, drawing 1-1 with Aston Villa, with nothing obviously to play for. We couldn't move up at all in the table. We were obviously safe against the Villa team, who had basically everything to lose. Neither team looked amazing, but somehow we managed to squeak out a draw.
Yeah, well, we were, not surprisingly, you know, not really at our best. You know, that we didn't have that much intensity to our play or urgency, but that's to be expected. It's difficult, I imagine, as a player when you know you're completely safe, you can't move up the table, you can't get relegated. I don't think the players' attitude was bad in any way. I think they went out and they showed, you know, a bit. You know, they had a bit about them. They had enough about them. You know, they clearly hadn't down tools or anything like that. They weren't woeful or anything. We played okay, and I think that's understandable. I don't particularly have a problem with how we played today. It's fine. We got a point. Didn't lose it. Fine. As you said to me earlier, the game was just a bit meh. So from our point of view, I wasn't surprised at the way we played. Equally, though, Aston Villa, it was difficult for them too, because at the beginning, obviously, all the teams start at 0-0. So it was kind of difficult for Villa to know whether to stick or twist.
Yeah.
You know, whether to go really attacking and try to really go at us and win the game, or whether to just be a bit more cautious. And they went with caution, totally understandable, particularly the first half. They played it very safe, Villa. Anytime, like, they gave up a lot of possession to us. I think we probably had about 65% of the ball in the first half. Anytime we were in possession, we're moving the ball around, and they basically just got everyone behind the ball, in and around their box. Just doing everything they could to make sure they didn't concede an early goal. That's completely understandable. So they'd have been relatively happy with the first half. They weren't put under any particular pressure. There was an early chance for Antonio, the kind of chance that Antonio always misses, frankly. You know, we saw it against Watford. Was it? Who did we see it? We saw it against Burnley, if you remember, when he was clean through, and had a great chance to score and put it wide of the same post. Did the same against Watford for his 3rd goal, actually, when he was running through on the keeper. He hit it straight at the keeper. Fortunately for him, in this instance, it looped up in the air and he was able to head it into an empty net. And again today, through on the keeper, right foot, puts it wide. So that's just Antonio, I'm afraid. It's just not his strong point. But yeah, Villa would have been relatively pleased with their first half. I was relatively pleased with how we played. Like I said, we had most of the ball, although we didn't create very much. But like I say, Villa made it very difficult by getting everyone behind the ball. But the second half, I thought Villa decided that they were going to be a bit more proactive. and I thought they played better second half. They created a few opportunities. Obviously, Grealish scored. Fabianski isn't going to want to see that one back.
No.
I have absolutely no idea what Fabianski was doing, and right now I can picture Tim listening to this, shaking his head, saying "fucking Fabianski," man. you know.
No, I was in the pub with him. That's basically what he was saying.
Yeah, I can't defend Fabianski on this one.
No.
I have no idea what he was doing. None. His positioning was fine, and then for some bizarre reason, as Grealish was about to hit the shot, he decided to lean way over to his left. Like he decided Grealish was going to try and go across goal. You can't do that because Grealish does not have to go across goal there. He can absolutely rifle that near post, and you can't sell out the way Fabianski sold out. And then Grealish just basically hit a straight pile driver, and Fabianski had dived past the ball. The ball went exactly where Fabianski had been standing. So that was a huge error on his part. So he won't be happy with himself on that, and it's kind of started to creep into Fabianski's game. I'm not sure why, because he was last season. I think he was close to flawless. Really, I mean, he was not mistake prone at all. I think he actually was the best in the Premier League as regards goalkeepers for errors. He just had almost none. But it's crept into his game now, and I don't know why. So that's a little bit of a worry.
If I were willing to bet, and I've seen a lot of people comment about this, Fabianski hasn't been quite the same player since the injury early on in the season. The one that left him out for quite some time when Roberto had to come in, and that was obviously the start of the decline of our season. I just think that Fabianski hasn't fully regained his form nor his confidence yet. I think he's still a little worried about the injury still.
Yeah, it's still a strange one though, Chris. I mean, he was playing great, and then he got the injury. I mean, there'd be no reason that I can think of, why, unless, he came back, and obviously after kind of lengthy injury, came back, he kind of had a recurrence of the injury, which put him out again for a little while, albeit for a lot less time, and then came back in again. Obviously, that's going to be disruptive for a player. And then took him a little while. He did make some errors after coming back. And as you say, I think he just hasn't quite regained the confidence and assuredness that he had before the injury. Hopefully, he can regain that next season. I think what he needs is to have a really great game in our first game back next season. If he makes, maybe a string of really, really good saves and get his kind of pump back and his confidence and his swagger. I hope so, because I think if he has another season like he had since he came back from his injury, I think David Moyes would probably be looking beyond him at that point, saying, "All right, we've got to try and find a keeper."
But that itself, though, is kind of an issue that I think that I have with the state of the club right now. Right now, we have 3 keepers, all in their mid-30s. We really don't have the next generation goalkeeper lined up. We keep who is it that we put out on loan to? What is his name? I'm at a loss. I can't remember. We lent out a young goalkeeper this season who's supposed to be
Nathan Trott to Wimbledon.
Yes, and potentially that's our future, but at the same time, we've not seen him whatsoever. So I have no clue if we're in need, like say David Martin and Randall were both to retire. Who's our backup? I mean,
but we really don't have one. Yeah, yeah. I don't know. I suppose it would be, unless we get one in. It would David Moyes would have to choose between Nathan Trott and Niang. So no, I'll be completely honest. I haven't seen nearly enough of either of them to make a judgment call on whether either of them are good enough or which one of the two is better than the other. Nathan Trott's older and obviously had that loan spell. So, but internally at the club, I don't really know what the feeling is about either of those players long term. So now, look, I don't think that's going to be something we have to worry about this upcoming season. I think Fabianski and Randolph and Martin will all be with us next season.
Oh, sorry, I thought you cut out there for a second. But yeah, I don't think that it's going to be a worry either. But long term, it will be. We have all these young players coming through the ranks that can fill in positions now, but we don't have anything at goalkeeper, and to me that's a little worrying.
Yeah, look, we'll have to figure that out next June, in the transfer window next summer. But I don't think so, Tim. But yeah, look, we'll have to figure that out next summer. But I think to be honest, Chris, I think this transfer window we've got bigger fish to fry.
Yeah, it's very true. But one of the other highlights of the match is obviously Declan Rice officially being crowned Hammer of the Year. I know we've been discussing this at length. Did it come to any surprise to you that he won?
No, not in the least. Let's be honest, it was a two-horse race. It was going to be him or Ogbonna. There was a lot of support for Ogbonna, understandably. But look, Declan Rice is the darling of the fans, and he's been magnificent all season. But sometimes what can happen is that you start to take it for granted that Rice is just going to be great every game, and you're kind of a little bit more surprised that Ogbonna's been so good consistently all season, and so you tend to notice Ogbonna being really great a bit more, whereas Rice is great. You think, yeah, of course he was. He's Rice. So I wondered if that was going to work against Declan Rice in the voting. But no, ultimately the fans, I think, made the right call. Rice is just a wonderful player, just wonderful. And like I say, just been, with the odd exception, he's been fantastic all season. And like I say, fans just absolutely love the guy and desperately want him to stay. And I think maybe we hope that being given Hammer of the Year might help with that, but we'll see. But yeah, I wasn't surprised.
Did you see the video that he recorded and was put out on the West Ham Twitter account? Did you watch that at all?
Talking about the award?
Yeah, just saying thank you for it and everything.
Yeah, I took a quick look at it, yeah.
I think you'll probably figure out about me, if you haven't already, that I like to potentially read into things a little too much.
I've noticed.
Yeah. And the way that I kind of read that, unless it's just him being the professional that he is, it does sound like it almost was, to me, dropping hints that he's going to be here next season if he can help it. Saying like, hopefully we can kick on next season, stuff like that. And like I said, it could just be him being the professional that he is, but it just looks to me and sounded to me that he wants to at least a little while longer.
I hope so. I don't claim to know what Rice thinks. Now, I'm just going to take out a little pin and just pop that little balloon there, Chris, for a second, okay? Because Declan Rice, diplomatically, is very good. He knows what to say.
That's what
listen, believe you me, I know. Those of us in Ireland have got first-hand experience of this, okay? After one of his 3 friendly appearances for our senior national team, he was asked about, the fact that he was dual nationality and that Gareth Southgate had been making some noises about him. And he was asked if it was a decision he was going to have to make. He said all the right things to us. Yeah. He made it clear to us he was playing for Ireland. He loved Ireland, loved playing for Ireland, and there was no decision to be made. And, well, you know what happened next.
Yeah.
So don't read into him accepting awards and thanking people and no matter what he's saying in publicly. Now, that's not me saying the opposite. I genuinely don't know where his head is at. Now, I do believe he loves the club. I do believe he cares about the club. I do believe he loves the fans. I do believe he's happy playing with West Ham. But there's only one way we're going to find out, really, if he's willing to stay, and that's when push comes to shove. When an offer is on the table from, say, Chelsea or whoever, and now it's really real. Now it's, okay, do I want to go and play for this team? And that's the only way we're going to find out. And to be completely honest, I suspect if the likes of Chelsea or Man United come in for him, I don't see why he wouldn't want to go play for them, to be honest.
Yeah. And I recall a few episodes or a few streams ago, I remember you saying too that he seems like kind of the player that will make sure that West Ham get a good price. He wouldn't just want to go on the cheap. He would want to make sure that the club get what he's worth. And I hope that holds true. I really do hope that he is one of those kind of players that makes sure that, like in this case, if Chelsea were only offering 40 million, he'd say, no, I will not go for such a low price.
Yeah, he's not Payet. He's not Arnautovic. He's not going to down tools. He's not going to kick up a fuss. So, he's not that kind of player. I think he's far more grateful and has too much respect and love for West Ham to do that. But then there's the question of our board as well, and Moyes. Depends what they want. I mean, the real big link here, obviously, is Chelsea, right? This is everyone's saying Chelsea is the team that's going to. Now, given that Chelsea have splashed the cash already, they've brought in Ziyech. Havertz is the latest player to come in, and obviously they've got Timo Werner coming. So I do not think Chelsea have another 80 million plus to throw at this. So they're going to want to use some of their players as make-weights. They're going to want to give us a little bit of cash. I think something relatively derisory. I think maybe 20 million cash and maybe 3 players, or something like that. Now, that should be absolutely off the table from our point of view, completely off the table. We should be saying, listen, we want 80 or whatever it is, 90 million cash. That's it. Money. We're not taking your cast-offs. We're not interested. We have our own targets that we're interested in. We're not interested in your players. We want the money. For me, that gets Chelsea out of the game.
Yeah.
Unless they really, really want him bad and are willing to eat into a future transfer budget. Say to Frank Lampard, look, fine, we can go and pay this 80 million, but don't come looking for money in January because we're using all of that up plus what's left of this transfer kitty. So they could potentially do it that way. But either way, I would want it cash, end of story. The other link, the only other real-ish link was Man United. Now, I don't think United are going to come in for him at all. They've still got McTominay there. And clearly, Solskjaer really likes McTominay. And I do as well, actually. I think he's a very good player. I think he's a bit underrated, actually, McTominay. So they've just given, what's his name? The defensive midfielder. I hate when my mind goes blank. Sorry? Yeah, thanks. They're just given Matic a 3-year contract.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, Matic just signed a 3-year deal, which really surprised me. I didn't think they were going to do that, but he has been playing very well, to be fair to him, but I didn't expect him to get a 3-year contract. So I don't think United are in the market for a Declan Rice. And I certainly don't think they're going to be looking to pay 80 million for another centre-back. So, if we keep Declan Rice, it almost might be by default. Not because there's any lack of interest, just because Chelsea can't probably afford him unless they use players, and we shouldn't allow that. And the other teams that can afford him are probably not looking to that position right now. Maybe they just don't need a Declan Rice. Unless Pep Guardiola or someone pulls a rabbit out the hat and says, actually, I desperately want a really top-class centre-back, and so I'm going to go and get Rice. But there's been no suggestion that that's his thinking. So that would be completely out of the blue, no pun intended.
Yeah, fair enough.
So we may just keep him because no one else can either afford him or needs to splash that kind of money for someone in that position. So we might be lucky.
Yeah. And obviously, I mean, the online, like, this means in all reality nothing. I did look it up on Transfer Market, what Rice's apparent, like, supposed value is. Now, this is as of they last updated it April 8th of this year, and they're only listing him at 54.5 million, and that's actually down where in the first half of the season they were listing him at 60 million. If he's
I guarantee you the next time they put that out, it will be blown up through past 60. He's been absolutely brilliant the last few games. I mean, if you watch his performances, like the one against Chelsea, I mean, some of his performances since the league resumed have been absolutely top class. And I think a lot of people have seen a lot more of West Ham than they normally would because of the situation. And I think a lot of people who were unsure about Rice or who just didn't rate him have suddenly realized, actually, hang on a second, this guy is absolutely top class. So his star has risen tremendously since the restart, his last few games. So yeah, I wouldn't worry too much about what they think.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, that pretty well sums it up. I mean, we're going to be this is going to be a talking point for the next several weeks until.
I'm sorry, Chris, just because it's something that actually really annoys me. I've seen fans of other teams in message threads on Twitter talking about that even if they like Rice a lot, they're saying absolutely no way is he worth 80, 90 million, whatever. These are people who don't understand football. It's as simple as that. Because I'm kind of blue in the face from being on these threads saying, you're a moron. You're not paying 80 million for him for a season. You're paying 80 million for a brilliant player who's 21, who will be a brilliant player for your team for the next 10 years. That's what you're paying for. You're not paying for just today. You're paying for 10 years of Declan Rice being brilliant for your team. That's 8 million a season. It's nothing.
No,
He's absolutely worth, to whoever wants to buy him, he is absolutely worth 80 million. If you look back in 10 years from now and say we paid 80 million for him, given the 10 years of brilliance you'll have gotten from him, you'd be saying we could have paid double that and I'd still be fine about that now.
Yeah. When you put it in that kind of perspective, like 80 million over the course of 10 years, that really does, like, to me, that almost makes it seem like we should be going in for more than 80 mil. I mean, that should be that's when we start listening, actually. Like, okay, now we're getting somewhere.
Yeah, that's for people who don't understand how these price tags come about.
Yeah.
They say, oh, he's not worth that. I don't think he's an 80 million pound player, because they're looking at, oh, he's very good, but I don't know if he's 80 million. These are idiots. He's going to be brilliant for your team for 10 years. It's not how it works. We value him at 80 million because you're getting a brilliant player for 10 years. Pay it. Yeah. He's worth it, or else go away. We're not taking less.
Yeah.
And we don't want your stupid cast-off players.
If you don't meet our asking price, we'll gladly hold on to him.
Happy days.
But yeah, like I was saying, this is going to be kind of a talking point for all West Ham fans, a lot of football fans in general, over the next few weeks until that window slams shut or until Rice moves. So, I mean, we could talk about this all day, but in all reality, we're going to be talking about it for the next few weeks. Just like this kind of situation reminds me of the summer transfer window. After the final season at the Bowling with Dimitri Payet, is he going to go? If he goes, where to and how much? And that's what that reminds me of to this, or with Declan Rice right now. similar scenario. Now, I'm not obviously saying he's going to go the way of Dimitri Payet. I don't think he ever even would come close to that, but it is eerily similar in the talk by pundits.
Yeah, well, look, it'll be very interesting to see if Chelsea or some other team tests the water and puts in a bid, and that's when it'll get really interesting. We'll just see how that plays out. But
Yep.
like I said, we could talk about this Declan Rice transfer stuff all night. But while we're on transfers, there has obviously been some great news since we last did our post-game show, and that is that Thomas Souček is now a West Ham player. Signed a permanent 4-year contract at an absolute snip at £16 million. That's robbery.
One thing I will say though is I don't think the details have been fully announced. I don't know how much he'll be making a week, but whatever it is, I feel like we should double it already.
Yeah, no, look, Souček is very happy right now. This is what he wanted. You could see, like, in the way he's played since the Premier League resumed, that he just gave absolutely everything. He desperately wanted us to stay in the Premier League because he wanted this move. I think he'd have been crestfallen going back to Prague. You know, yeah. I think he really would have been, and I think he's delighted to have signed a new contract. He's really, really in the shop window now. You know,
yeah.
Who knew? Like, listen, Slavia Prague were in the Champions League. This season just gone. I mean, and people still didn't really know much about Thomas Souček. Playing for West Ham now, even over this kind of half a season, as it were, a hell of a lot of people know who he is now, worldwide, just because he played half a season in the Premier League and played really well. So if he does that for a season, next season, I mean, he's a household name. Everybody in world football knows who Thomas Souček is and knows that he is a bloody good player. So this is a great move for him. It's a great move for us. And worst case scenario, even if we only had him for another full season or two, we are going to make bank on this guy. We're going to get coin for this guy. You know, we're going to sell him for a hell of a lot more than we bought him for. And that's ideally, as a club, what you want to be doing with your transfers.
And that's just assuming that we end up selling. Who knows? Maybe him and Rice both form a bond and they say they want to stay in West Ham together. In all reality,
we're going to have to sort our shit out if that's going to happen long term.
Yeah, that's very fair. But, I mean, it's still very possible. What I love, too, about the Souček, what it meant, what the full transfer now meant for Souček, his boyhood club.
Yeah, they're 10%.
Yep, and they get 1.6 million pounds, which means that their next 10 years worth of budget is set.
Yeah, I mean, great for them. You know, that's something I really like in contracts, is when the parent clubs get a percentage of the sell-on. It's always great for small clubs. You know, every team now, kind of in lower leagues, puts those in there when they sell a player. I'm absolutely certain Jared Bowen probably, you know, Hull wanted a sell-on clause. I'm sure that they got it. So if we sell Jared Bowen for 50 million, that Hull City will get 10% or whatever. So it's great for smaller clubs. I like that those are in contracts, you know, and it helps some more money to filter down to smaller clubs. So I'm sure Souček was delighted to see that money, you know, going to his boyhood club. You know, it's fantastic for them.
Yeah. But now turning away from transfers here a bit. Obviously, with the season being wrapped up, finishing 16th, kind of a shaky season, obviously. Kind of want to get your favorite moments, your highs, your lows of the season. Kind of want to get your thoughts on the whole season.
Okay. One of the ones that really springs to mind, which was, I thought it was just a wonderful thing to see, was David Martin fulfilling his boyhood dream of playing for West Ham And not only did he get to make his debut for West Ham in goal, his dad is standing behind him. It's at Stamford Bridge. We beat Chelsea, and he kept a clean sheet. I mean, stuff dreams are made of. Was he 33 or something, 32, 33, when he finally fulfilled his lifelong dream?
Yeah.
I mean, he grew up watching his dad be an absolutely magnificent centre back for West Ham. And to finally realize his dream at that age. We all saw he was in tears on the pitch at the final whistle. It just meant absolutely everything to him. And for me, I'm a big softie at heart. So that was a moment of the season for me.
I have to absolutely agree with you. I think if that's not almost every single West Ham fan's moment of the season, I don't know what you're doing. For me, that's kind of sums up West Ham in a whole for me. That moment there moments like that remind me of why I fell in love with this club, and it just reconfirms that no matter the highs, no matter the lows of this club, I mean, everyone's just kind of together like that. So for me, that has to be the absolute top moment of the season for me. Just running into the stands and hugging his dad, that's just incredible.
Yeah, I mean, once West Ham gets into your heart, it's there forever. You know,
yep.
You will always love the club. You'll always have passion for it. It will always mean a lot to you. And David Martin was no different. So I was delighted for him. You know, I'm sure him and his dad would have talked about that for years and years and years. He would have been growing up saying, "Dad, when I grow up, I'm going to play for West Ham like you." And for him to finally have that moment. Because we all understand that, right?
Yeah.
You know, it would mean the same thing to any of us if we ever had the chance. I mean, I don't know if you saw the video that the club put out last week with Mark Noble.
I love this comment. Worst moments, signing the guy Martin replaced.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, we'll get there. Don't worry. We'll get there. But yeah, I don't know if you saw the video last week that West Ham put out of Mark Noble talking about his, 500 games for West Ham and stuff. And even Mark Noble, who, like David Martin, grew up with West Ham in his heart as a West Ham boy, even he said, once I'd made my debut and I played for West Ham, he says, that was enough for me. He said, I could have gone and just got a normal job like everyone else. And he said that would have just made my life, that I would be able to say that I played for West Ham. He said that would have been enough for me. But obviously, he said to go on and then play 500 times, it was just stuff of dreams. So it's that kind of club. It just gets into your heart, and it just means everything to all of us. And so that's definitely 100% my moment of the season. I was a little teary-eyed myself. Because I watched, I'm old enough that I was at Upton Park many a day watching his dad play for us, and to see him kind of fulfill his dream was wonderful for him. I mean, you can even see, I'm sure even though he doesn't really play anymore, not even on the bench, Randolph's the backup, but I'm sure he's on the training. He gets to go to West Ham's training ground every day for his job, work at the training ground. He must be just completely content in life right now. Fair play to him.
Yeah, fair enough. I'll give another one from me. One of my moments of the season. What's funny though is that for me, the moment of the season comes off of one of the lows of the season of when we crashed out of the FA Cup. And the reason that I say that it was one of my high moments of the season was I believe, our second or third live post-match live stream, and the rants that we went on, especially you, I think that was one of my favorite moments of the season.
Which game was that?
The FA Cup match that we lost to West Brom.
Yeah, I've had too many opportunities to be renty this season, way more than I would like. But then you're always pressing my buttons. You know what sets me off, and you deliberately bring it up the subject, and so it's partly your fault.
Well, hey, it makes good content. Let's just put it down.
Yeah, people love. Yeah, controversy gets ratings, I suppose.
To this day, I actually do think that is our highest viewed video. So it did its
Well,
job.
when people are angry, they tend to be more inclined to come and watch these streams, and because they've got things to say themselves, in the live chat, and
Yeah.
people want to get this stuff off their chest, and when they're angry, and so I suppose it's just natural, really.
Yeah, and that's what we've always said throughout these things. A couple matches ago, we had brought it up. We'd said that we love doing these because if it's always easier to do these matches after losses. I've come to find that out just because it's so much easier to critique than to praise. And with these kind of matches, you're so pissed off that you can come in, you and I vent to one another. People are venting with us and to each other in the chat, and it makes us all feel just a little bit better. So
getting it off your chest, yeah.
But and even the positive shows, for me, I've always actually found the positive, like the victories, even the draws, to be harder to do, like to figure out what to talk about in these matches, just because of the nature of it. I mean, you're so happy and you're like, we don't need to change a thing. We don't need to talk about anything because everything was perfect, even if it wasn't. So
yeah, when you play badly and you lose, like you say, you tend to have a lot more to say. There tends to be a lot more passion that comes out because you're a bit angry and you're upset and you're disappointed, and of course, then you tend to go on these rants. But when you're happy and you've played really well and you've performed really well and won the game, you're less inclined to kind of rant about how happy you are. It's easier to rant about how angry you are, really.
Exactly. So on the backs of that, then, what are some of your low moments in the season?
We've already had it. You all know what's coming. I mean, just Roberto is the low of the season. Not any one particular moment. Obviously, the Burnley one kind of stands out for me. That goal, just disgraceful. But yeah, that really screwed our whole season. We were going well at the time. You remember, we had just beaten Man United. Can't remember exactly where we were on the table, but we were going really well. And our next game was away at Bournemouth. Yeah, and we were playing really well in that Bournemouth game. Bournemouth were too, in fairness to them, in that game. They played really well. But it was kind of end-to-end game, but we were performing well. And then Fabianski picks up this horrible thigh injury just from taking a goal kick. Just a freak occurrence. And for the rest of that game, we played really well. And we came away with a very creditable 2-2 draw. So at that point, we're all actually feeling good about our season and about the way we're playing and about a lot of the players. I didn't know anything about bloody Roberto. I hadn't a clue who he was. I'd never seen him play. So, and I assume all West Ham fans were in the same boat, but we figured, well, Pellegrini knows him and Kuselos knows him. They brought him in, so hopefully he's good enough to be our backup, and we'll, keep things nice and steady until Fabianski gets back. And then we realised that this guy's absolutely horrific. Like, genuinely, Chris, and I'm not saying this because he it affected us, but I don't recall ever seeing a goalkeeper in the Premier League as bad as that. I really don't. No. I mean, he looked like, I don't know if you remember years ago, there was a guy who conned Southampton into taking him on trial at the club. Graham Souness was their manager. I think he called himself Ali Dai. And he conned him. He told him, oh, this fella's George Weah's cousin. He's really good player. He's on a free. They brought him into the club, and they actually brought him on in a game. Graham Souness. This guy wasn't related to a footballer, right? This guy was absolutely awful. And they realised after he'd played a couple of times, they're looking around going, what is this? The guy just couldn't play. And they realised shortly after they'd actually been completely conned. This guy was not a professional footballer of any description. He was a fucking Sunday league player. Do you know what I mean? Like, And I feel like Roberto's like that. I mean, he was that bad. I feel like we got conned by somebody somewhere along the way that this guy is a goalkeeper, a professional goalkeeper. I mean, I'm convinced he's actually like a carpet fitter or something.
He probably would be better at that than goalkeeping. And I wholeheartedly agree. I think not just Roberto, the whole situation with it. I will say though, what's crazy to me is listening to Dave and X's podcast. I remember a few months ago they said that Roberto, before we brought in Fabianski, Roberto was the target. Like that, had we not brought in Fabianski, we would have brought Roberto. So
can you imagine?
I don't want to. I really do not. But I mean,
we'd be looking forward to a season in the championship right now.
Yeah. And for me, I think in general, then the lowest point of the season for me was that Fabianski injury. Because, I mean, that physically changed every direction of the season. Had that not occurred, I mean, we were battling for top. Forget like top half. We were battling for third position in the table. Had he not gone down, and then on top of that, had Pellegrini not kept him in as long as he did, just kept throwing, like just running against a brick wall, our season would look in total incredibly different. Had Fabianski not gone down at all, Pellegrini would be willing to bet is still our manager, and we're easily top half.
Yeah, that was one of the strange thing. I mean, okay, you can't do anything about Fabianski getting injured, and then you bring in Roberto, he's your backup. Okay, but you're right. I mean, Fabianski absolutely confounded the problem by continuing to play him when it was clear he was an accident waiting to happen every time a ball came in the box. He made the centre backs nervous as fuck. Every time a ball came in, they were terrified of what was coming next, which is not a good mental space for centre backs to be in. Centre backs need to have a keeper behind them that they really believe in and trust. Because if you're Diop or Agbona or Balbuena, whoever happened to be playing that day, and a cross comes in and you're ready to come and deal with this, and then you hear Roberto shouting that he's coming for it, you're probably thinking, oh, Christ. Because you just know this guy is just going to come flapping past you like a fucking injured pigeon and probably going to just bat the ball into his own net or miss it completely, and then it's going to be fucking headed into an empty net, and that's no good for the team. It's no good for centre backs. So it's incredible how long Pellegrini stuck with him. Absolutely incredible. And to be honest, he didn't actually ever need to be at the club, Roberto. I don't know if you know this, but there's a reserve keeper at Tottenham. He's a Dutch keeper, Michel Vorn. Loads of Premier League and Championship experience. He's a really, really decent goalkeeper. Now, Tottenham released him at the end of last season. He was a free agent in London, settled, who'd been playing for Tottenham. You could literally have just gone to Michel Vorn and said, "Yeah, we'll take you on." He's not going to be on big money. He's a very, very capable backup goal. I mean, capable to the point where if Fabianski's form dips, he'll come under severe pressure from Vorn because he's going to be good on the training ground. He's a really good keeper, Vorn. So we really missed a trick there. And if we had Michel Vorn as our backup keeper when Fabianski went down, we would have been fine.
You successfully made me retroactively pissed off. I did not know that. Oh, that just that aggravates me to no avail. Great. But
I have to say, before, I don't want to leave it on a shit note. I have to say, just to go back to like the highlights of the season. to one very, very recently, beating Chelsea 3-2 at home the way we did, where we played extremely well, and then to win the game the way we did, Chelsea dumping the ball into the box and suddenly like to break on them at pace, and Antonio plays that ball through to Yarmolenko on the right, who's completely on his own, and just one-on-one with Rudiger, and then cuts inside, and you just knew the second he cut inside, it was over. He will always find the side netting inside that far post from there, always, on that left foot of his. And then for him to sweep it into the net and to score the winner against Chelsea at home, 3-2 in the 89th minute. I mean, I was just off my couch. I was jumping around, just screaming. That was absolutely brilliant. Because we love beating Chelsea and Tottenham particularly. Love beating them. And to do that and to win it like that, in that fashion, in a really great game where we scored 3 goals, played great, and deserved the win, that's definitely something I'm going to remember for a while.
And that is probably one of the other highs for me, too, being that unbeaten or winning both matches against Chelsea and unbeaten against Man United.
Took 4 points from United.
Yeah, out of a possible 12 points, we took 10.
And in the scheme of things, I mean, they're huge points.
I mean, they're huge matches to begin with, just to the nature of the beast. But when you throw in the fact that you're a relegation side and you take 10 points out of 4 matches against 2 of the top 6.
Well, they're both in Champions League next season.
Exactly. I mean, those 4 matches in itself is enough to build on for next season.
Yes, if we get our transfers correct, and Moyes, like I say, fingers crossed, does a good job, which he very well might. Then I think it's hard to be too positive, because we've made this mistake before. I was so positive going into the start of this season. I thought Pellegrini had done really quite well in his first season.
We were talking about if we could get into the top 6.
Yeah.
Let alone survive.
We were, because and for a while it looked pretty good, and then, as you say, for obvious reasons that we've already discussed, the wheels came off, and we were just kind of struggling from there. But we've got to get out of this cycle. We just have to, because it's getting harder and harder to finish inside the top 10, let alone in the Europa League spot, because it seems that any club that's reasonably well run at the moment is going to finish above us.
Yep. I mean,
and we're potentially now adding in Newcastle.
Yep.
If that takeover is approved, that's another team long term that we will not finish above season to season. There's already a few clubs, we all know who they are, that we will not finish above. Yeah. Right? We're trying to be in the next pack. But now if you add Newcastle to that top pack, all of a sudden, even qualifying for Europa League means we would have to have a very, very good season. And it would be a bloody good season for us just to be a top half team at that point.
Yeah.
So given how well, Wolves even are run, it's not going to be easy for us to finish against Wolves unless the wheels come off for them. They could lose Nuno. He's obviously a very highly rated manager now. So, if someone, Porto or Sporting Lisbon or Benfica or someone came in for him, that would be incredibly tempting for him. Or some other big European team said, "Oh, I like this Nuno at Wolves. What a job he's doing."
And then on top of that,
the wheels could still come off for Wolves, but barring that, I mean, it's going to be difficult for us to finish above Wolves even. Yeah. So what now? I'd love to put that question to Sullivan and Gold. I said, given what I've just said, what are your ambitions here now? Because they have to be revised. All that bullshit that we're talking before the move, that's out the window completely now. It's gone. It's over. So what is our ambition now? It seems to me a top 10 finish would be a really great season and perhaps all we can expect.
Yeah, I mean, Foshizi says it best. Slow cooked team rebuild is in order for us. I don't know if it's in order, but I mean that's the approach we're going to have to take. I mean, especially with the fact that it seems like under this board we'll never have a proper transfer budget. If that's the case, we're always going to have to depend on scraps and what we can sell and our academy. If that's the case, we're in this cycle for a while.
We're going to have to, we're going to have a lot of signings like Socek and Bowen, basically. We're going to have to, our transfer policy is going to have to be spot on. So
yeah.
I know a lot of people here don't understand American football or whatever, but the Kansas City Chiefs have given a massive, massive contract to their quarterback, Patrick Mahomes, which is eating hugely into their cap space. So they're in a position now where they're going to have to be really excellent in the draft if they're going to build a good team around him. So we're kind of like that now. We're not going to have huge transfer funds. So we're going to have to be very smart in our transfer dealings. We're going to have a lot more hits than misses if we're to build a team that can actually break into the top 10. We need a lot more signings like Bowen and Socek who hit the ground running and who prove to be excellent value for money. So fingers crossed that David Moyes has got the eye for them.
Yep. And that's what I was going to say. I'm hoping that Moyes is the one who can break the cycle. I'm hoping by some miracle he is given free reign. He is able to spend what he needs to spend. I'm not saying that he needs probably $100 million, considering the core players that we have, but I'm hoping that he gets the financial backing that he needs to actually be able to turn this club in the correct direction and build on this this restart at the start of next season and just continue it. I mean, that's what we have to hope for.
Yeah, I mean, actually, another thing I'm going to be really keeping a close eye on in this transfer window is the situation with Grady Diangana. Obviously, he's had a fantastic season with West Brom, and they're now promoted. If West Brom had missed out on promotion on the final day, Brentford had come up, I think that would have been kind of it. I think Diangana would have been coming back to us. I doubt if Diangana would have wanted to stay in the Championship long term.
Yeah.
But the fact that they're promoted now, they're a Premier League team, West Brom. I'll be amazed if a bid does not come in from them for Diangana.
Oh, I am.
So I'll be interested to see where David Moyes is on this. Now, personally, I wouldn't sell him. I think he's good enough that we should give him a season on our left midfield role, because I think we are going to lose Lanzini and Anderson. So we need someone over there. And I think, why take a chance on a player you think is going to be good and do the job when you have someone like Diangana who's already here and who fits that description? So I think we should keep Diangana, start him at the beginning of the season in that left midfield role, and let's see how he does. If he tears it up and he's fantastic, then great. That's another position filled that we don't have to worry about spending money on. My worry is that we're going to sell him cheaply, because our board have a nasty habit of doing that, of losing players for less money than they're worth.
I believe they have to
surprise me terribly if they took 15 million from West Brom. I mean, if David Moyes, who knows, maybe he just wants the 15 or 20 million that he can get for him. But I would keep Diangana personally. I'd be very disappointed if we sell him to West Brom.
Yeah, and I agree with you on that. I think that Moyes is going to have a serious conversation with the Diangana to see where he kind of would fit in with the plans, and see and more importantly for me too, which team would Diangana rather play for? Does he want to be here at West Ham, or does he want to stay at West Brom?
I think he'd rather be at West Ham. Look, we're the bigger club. It's as simple as that. There will always be the worry with West Brom. They've just got promoted that they could go right back down, whereas we're an established albeit just about now, an established Premier League team, a bigger club. We're his club. I mean, he's our academy graduate. So I've no doubt he'd rather be at West Ham next season. And that's exactly where I hope he'll be. I'd be playing him next season. I'd be saying, look, and the same with Johnson. Listen, we've got positions that need filling. We have 2 young players who are very talented, who can potentially fill those positions right now that won't cost a penny, right? So we can take care of the right back position and we can take care of the left midfield position right now, and it will cost us nothing. We've already got those players here, young and talented.
Yep.
Give them a season, let them prove themselves. I think they both will. I think definitely Johnson will. And Diangana has a great chance of proving himself too. So spend your money elsewhere. There's no need to spend it on either of those positions. And like you say, especially when money's going to be tight. So let's not make things hard on ourselves.
Yeah. Well, listen, mate, this has been a fun as always, obviously being the last one of the season. We've kind of come to an end. I want to thank everyone in the chat for joining us, not just for today, but for this entire season. I imagine I can speak for Tommy with this, but I've really enjoyed doing these. I think that they're a lot of fun, a lot of great way to get connected with everyone, kind of vent when need be. And we're going to be right back here next season. You can count on that. Obviously, fixture list is not out yet, but I would assume our first match is going to be September 12th. And
Man City.
What?
It'll be Man City or Liverpool or someone like that. It always is.
Yeah, exactly. But I will tease a little bit as well. We've been talking. This has kind of been an idea that's been brought up today. Tommy and I might be having a different show to bridge the gap between this being the last match of the season and the next one. Obviously, those details will kind of be coming out on social media in the coming days, as well as when you see the new show go live. But hope you guys always tune in. Any closing words on the season, mate?
Yeah, just to clarify, the new show is going to be a transfer rumors and transfer news show. So we'll be talking about all the links, players that we're linked with, comings and goings, whatever's going on that's West Ham transfer related. So that should be a fun and interesting show. As regards the season, overall, you'd have to say very disappointing. Like I said earlier, we all came into this season feeling that it potentially promised a lot. We were all very optimistic, but it just hasn't worked out at all. Really, the fact that we only guaranteed our safety after 37 games, is terrible. Really, it's just terrible. Delighted that we have in the end, but this is Upton Park didn't die for this, and we need to be doing much better. And obviously, there won't be nearly as much optimism, I don't feel, going into next season. But this season has just been far too many low points, far too many struggles, and just overall very disappointing for all involved.
Yeah. Wholeheartedly agree, man. Well, listen, in terms of the post-match shows, we will be back mid-September. But as always, until then, come on, you Irons.